Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag,
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, liberty.
Next is the adoption of the agenda. That motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Agenda's been adopted. There's no public comment today. So we can move on to reports, and we'll start with board reports.
I'll go ahead and start. Been speaking to some parents. I think one of the things that's come up the most has been safety. And then also had a parent express that, you know, they don't feel like the district is very open to, or there isn't so much of a two-way communication when there's parents wanting to have sharing concerns with the district, I guess it is, and just wanting to collaborate a little bit more openly.
I attended several of the negotiation sessions we had and the district music festival.
I went to Orlando for NSBA, the National School Board Association, and I found pretty interesting workshops and tools for our communities and our children. I discovered something called Sky Schools, and it's a way to meditate or do some kind of meditation at the beginning of the spring, and how grades were elevated and have very many benefits of doing some breathing. It's not meditation, it's breathing exercise in the morning. So it was amazing. So I have the pamphlet for you guys to read it. I also encountered some of the Florida school districts having a survey the children, the students, to regarding the food that's serving at the schools. And so they have a great buffet of a variety of food that having the populations that we serve here in Woodburn, I think it would be something very amazing to have. I talk about the Russian community, how they have a very different diet during many different times of year, and how can we help, you know, communities come together and have a meal together, because sometimes our kids bring the meals when there's like when it's a religious holidays for different communities, and you know, sometimes kids just hide because the meal is it's not something that they feel comfortable sharing or, you know, being with, and so on and so forth. So I thought it was amazing how they, with the same budget that we all have, they've been creating different diets, not only talking about the Mexican community or American Anglo community, talking about a variety, like many regions of the globe, and so on. So I have that information also, but it was amazing. It was just amazing to see how many other components of many other communities are coming together. So it was just amazing.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have the information.
A couple events that I attended, I also attended mediation as well as the district musical. Was just over at North Marion attending their track meet. Attended last week where it was flying down the rain too. And what else? The Ivy Art Show.
Sure, next, I attended a couple of the mediation sessions last week. And, just kept in touch till the end. So that was most of my time serving the community. All right, up next is the Office of Superintendent.
All right, call the table. Sarah Bishop. Go over our financial report.
I too feel like I'm coming out from the land of attending bargaining sessions. Feels good to kind of be back to normal, you may. You guys have your typical monthly financial report in front of you. You'll notice, or maybe you won't notice, I shouldn't assume. None of the new bargain changes will be reflected on this, as the back pay and updated encumbrances probably won't come out until after the May payroll, would be my assumption. So those numbers are not reflected on this sheet. This is just the current encumbrances and any payroll reflective of the prior contract. So please be aware when you're looking at this. So I have nothing terribly exciting to report on that front. As you can see from the enrollment report, our enrollment is up slightly from the prior month. And you'll kind of see, from February, you'll see that trend happens kind of year over year. So 4 of 2022 is higher than 2 of 2022. And this is kind of just normal fluctuations we see throughout the year. But again, it's a bright note that our enrollment is up slightly over the prior year at this time.
You know why that happens?
I don't know. You know, I honestly don't know. It's not something that I have ever dug into. Dr. Morlock, you might have better insight, having been in education a lot longer than I have. But we do see those cyclical trends of students coming and going.
Certain families also go and travel during the winter time if they are from other places, and they'll go away, and so you'll see the uptick there. Sometimes you have people who are spring is a very busy time for families to move, and so sometimes they'll land, and you'll see that the numbers are actually at 9 through 12 are the ones that are up quite a bit year over year now. So it really depends on the thing, but sometimes it is about work movements.
Families of high school.
We do have a big bubble at the high school. As you can see in our K-5 enrollment, it's down from the prior year at this time. Same with 6-8. So the bubble is at 9-12. So that means we're not replacing as many students as we're graduating. So over time, that's definitely going to be a pretty big enrollment shift for the district as those kids graduate out.
So we will have no lower enrollment. We're estimating lower enrollment already next year with a larger graduating class and a smaller incoming kindergarten. Remember that we base our kindergarten estimates on what we have this year, because we don't have any idea how many more will come or go. So we use that as we just roll that number over. By October 1st, we have what are called that's our actual enrollment day, where we say this is what our numbers are, but at least from this current projection, we're 80 to 90 kids already shorter. So that's an enrollment drop coming in next year, just for no other thing than just graduating more than we bring in at kindergarten. And then we'll know again by October 1 what our actual numbers are, especially at kindergarten.
I think last time you mentioned the figure, so like for 2023, for example.
Mhm.
That's how many students showed up on that day, not necessarily how many students down the roll.
Correct. No, this would be, so students who are currently enrolled in the district. So if there would have been a 10-day drop prior to that, we couldn't count them in our ADM. So they would have been removed from the count. Not necessarily students who attended school that day, but students enrolled in the district.
I do have a question in the, first page.
Sure.
So where it says technology and display, down, is that personnel or is that that's the bodies and materials?
Yes, all of the above. So when we look at the function levels, we're looking, and that's what these are. We're looking at everything that falls under that function. So that is personnel, that's, so under personnel is salaries and benefits. It could be extended time for things people do outside of the normal workday. It could be dues and fees for that particular program. It could be supplies to run that program. It could be professional development for staff. It's a whole host of things under that particular function. The only one function you'll see on here that probably doesn't have any of those unique things underneath is Charter Schools 1288, and that's our pass-through payment. ODE pays us for our Fair Academy students, and we have to turn around to pay our Fair Academy. So that's the only thing that function. Everything else would be, as you mentioned, all those other items.
So for the resource room,
Mhm.
that would include, you just shared as well for the.
Correct. It would be salaries, benefits, supplies, professional development, contract services, everything that would fall under the scope of that function.
So resource room, what kind of personnel would that be? Well, like instructional coaches?
No, so 1250 is sped. So 1220, 1223, 1224, 1225, 1250, those are all special education functions. So those support specific things within special education.
And I guess I have a similar question for the second page where it says service direction.
So
Can you
which
talk
one?
about the
Uh,
service direction?
2190?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2190 encompasses two separate areas. That is the student services management piece. So the SPED offices, we can't charge, for example, the program secretary for SPED to a 1000 function, even though she supports SPED operations, because it's a support service, so it has to be under a 2000 function. And that also supports the Welcome Center as well. So there's a few different things that fall under that piece,
Is that mostly personnel?
mainly personnel. And again, there is going to be supplies. But of course, most of our budget, about 78% of our budget is salaries and benefits. So when you're looking at numbers, yeah, most of it is personnel.
So you said welcome center and,
Student services. Yep.
yeah.
Awesome.
So can you share a little more on 2410?
2410 is Office of the Principal. So that houses anything related to the front office of a school building. So that houses the principals, that houses secretaries, that covers the reams of paper that the front office buys to support classrooms. That's going to be general supplies across an entire school building. That function supports a lot of operations to support the general school-based
That's
functions.
the school level.
Correct. And that's across the entire district, not like one particular school.
And the office of the superintendent, is that on
That is 2320. So the office of the superintendent, 2320 and 2329 is, a lot of the dues and fees for the district go under that as well. And does our insurance go under that one too, Jenny?
I think so.
Yeah, so that one's gonna be our district-wide liability insurance. Will also fall under that.
Yeah, the board and superintendent, we get a lot of the fees. We pay a lot of the fees.
this? 2320, right?
2320 and 2329, that's superintendent and board. Oh, 2320, yeah, 2311, sorry, thank you, Jenny. The 2311, 2320, and 2329 are kind of the overall operations of the superintendent and board.
These are not numerical order, right?
It should be.
Am I looking at them? So I see 2173.
2143, 2143, is all sped services. So go to the second page, this one. 2311 is, I don't know, what would you say?
Oh,
Less than a third of the way down.
okay.
Mhm. Any other questions?
No?
Y'all for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right, up next, we have a handful of confirmation items. Take a moment to review those.
I have a couple questions, Joe. So I think it was either the last meeting or the meeting before where we approved contracts.
Mhm.
But I think also, I don't remember what school, but there was maybe a couple administrator positions. And so I don't see them on here for hiring, so I just wondering if you give us a status on that, are those jobs that have been posted?
I'm sure, which ones are you speaking
The
specifically?
position, I think, I wanna say French Prairie and.
The French Prairie and the Valor ones have not yet been determined. The Lincoln one is being, the interviews start next week. So we should have that one.
And
decided.
that would be for both, principal and assistant.
No, at Lincoln, just the principal position.
So a couple meetings ago, it was the assistant principal position that I saw in here. So does that mean we're not going to hire? Are we going to hire?
She was already in the position, so then we appointed her. She came in. So she's already there. That's Alejandra, and then we're hiring the principal position. So that's been out. The staff has been involved in the paper screen, and then they will do an interview starting next week, and then I'll meet them the following week, the finalists.
And so for French Prairie, you said,
For French Prairie and for Valor, we've not yet made an announcement. Right,
and is that for principal only?
that is for principal only in both cases, yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit about, I know they were interims for some
Mhm.
of those two positions. What is the process?
So
It seems like you can either appoint.
I can appoint or we can go out. I met, I sat with, at the school for a full day and had 15-minute appointments for anybody who wanted to come talk to me. And so I spoke with both staffs. And then I'm making a determination on that. And we also have to look at now the process has moved forward into budgeting, whether there can be some reductions and where people will move to and bump and things like that. So there are still a lot of things in the works.
Sorry, so I guess I don't quite understand. Are we? So you had then determined if those.
Has not been determined if they're going to be appointed or if there'll be a process
Or
yet.
you don't know. So I guess my only concern is this is kind of hiring
Mhm.
season for staff. And so, either that will encourage or discourage staff from sticking around and applying or going elsewhere, which.
Are you talking about
might be-
applying for the principalship or applying for other things?
Yeah, I mean, that would be an example.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think part of this is that we had to finish getting a tentative agreement so we would know where we were before we have to make some other choices around budgeting. And so that's part of this process because we have people who have contracts and we have to honor those contracts. So we're trying to make some determinations about what movements we might be able to make within the system in order to honor the contracts and also move forward on. So that's why we're holding off.
Okay. Do you have a timeline as to what that might look like?
No, but as soon as possible. That's what we're trying to get we've already started to meet on budgeting implications because we have budget meetings coming up for the budget committee. So we have to work on those things too. So I met with those staffs a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
So that part of the process will be done. And then we'll determine what moves next at both middle schools.
Will that be before the budget is presented? I'm sure.
Probably, yeah, because if not, it's gonna be really late.
Right.
Yeah. So within the next 2 weeks or even a week, we'd like to have that determination finished. But I have to make some other selections first and some other choices about what might stick around, what we might have to reduce.
But it sounds like Lincoln definitely needs an assistant.
Lincoln already has an assistant principal, yeah, so
Right.
the principal. Yeah,
Right.
right. So the principal position is in process to be interviewed next week.
Is there a principal there now?
We have a temporary interim principal who came after Sarah left,
Okay.
right? So he's there now doing that, and then we've gone through a full open application process.
So we have the two middle schools, Lincoln, is there other schools that need principals? or-
We currently have or will have at the end of this year an assistant principal position at the high school open. Mhm.
And that posting is up.
No. For the same reason. Around budgeting.
For the Lincoln principal position.
No, the Lincoln principal, the posting is no longer up because we've already gotten a pool of applicants. They're selecting them through a paper screen already. They'll begin actually interviewing next week.
So it's in the works.
It's already in
The
the
high
works.
school one,
The high school one, we're going to hold on until we make some of the determinations.
yeah.
And same thing with the two middle school principals.
So here where they have future dates, that just means they're not gonna come back next year, right?
Correct. So people are resigning at the end of the year, but they're staying until now. So they've let us know. So people who are actually in the work and doing the work now and wish to stay through. Some of them do have a date that is more recent. And they may have taken something else or may, we do have we can hold people up to 60 days if we need to backfill the position and we don't have one yet. There are some along the way that we determined that we didn't need to backfill and that we would go ahead and let them go. And again, it's because they may have another position somewhere.
And so these start dates for March 27 of this year, are these like the program secretary for student services, is that a new position? Or is that the new position?
No, that's a replacement of somebody who was there who took a different position.
Okay. So it sounds like these will go into next year? I mean, if you're hiring now.
At this point, yes, unless there are other choices made along the way.
And then can you share how our school psychologists are leaving?
I'm sorry?
We have 3 school psychologists
Mhm.
who are resigning. I know sometimes we don't ever know why, but it just seems interesting that.
Yeah, those are not things that we would share in a public meeting. But they are in high demand all across the area.
What do we do now to help retain our staff that?
Well, as we look later on tonight at the tentative agreement, I think you'll see some things in there that we've made some adjustments on. That'll be helpful. Yeah.
I move to approve the confirmation items as presented.
It's been moved, is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Items have been confirmed. All right, we'll move on to the board action items, new business. We have Teacher Appreciation Week resolution number 23-002.
And that is for the week after next. So coming up pretty quickly. Here you go.
What you have. Okay. Teacher Appreciation Week, May 8th through the 12th, 2023, resolution number 23-002. Whereas teachers mold future citizens through guidance and education. And whereas teachers encounter students of widely differing backgrounds, and whereas our country's future depends upon providing quality education to all students. And whereas teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling, and coaching students in performing community service, and whereas teachers prepare our students to graduate ready to pursue college, career options, and success in life. And whereas teachers foster positive and supportive relationships to facilitate student growth and provide meaningful and equitable opportunities for learning for all students. And whereas our community recognizes and supports its teachers in educating the children of this community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Woodburn School District Board of Directors proclaims May 8th through May 12th, 2023 to be Teacher Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the Woodburn School District Board of Directors strongly encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alright. So item number 2 is 2022-2023 school closure days.
Just want to make sure it's an action item, you have to vote on it.
Need a motion and a
Let's
second to adopt.
do it. Is there a motion to adopt Teacher Appreciation Week resolution number 23-002?
I so moved.
Been moved.
Go ahead.
For a second, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so item 2, so we have school closure days.
You got it? Very good. All right, thank you. As you recall, we were late in February and we did have one school closure day on the 23rd due to inclement weather. As per your policy, we bring it to you by this meeting date, and you can decide whether or not we need to make that day up. We are currently on track, and in fact, our fewest amount of days available are 4.5 days for our seniors, so we're well over the instructional hours necessary to comply with the law. So we are on track for that. So our recommendation is that we do not add that one day to the end of the school year this year and move forward. So we're bringing this for your consideration. We have to get this on the calendar if we were to add it.
The motion to,
I move we approve the recommended school closure days action.
I'll second.
any discussion? Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Recommendation has been approved.
Okay, in your packet, we have some policy updates. Remember that there is a summary in the first 4 pages that starts with the Oregon School Board's one. The one is the purple thing across the top. Okay, and that will give you the summary. I want to highlight a few of the items in here. Any questions you may have had by already reading the packet before the meeting, but if not, there's plenty of time to look over them. So I'm actually going to go into the policies themselves. One I want to highlight for you. The new proposed ones under cybersecurity EHB, which is on page 31 of the packet, which you can barely read, but if you look closely, you can kind of see page 31. That is a completely brand new one. The policy itself is pretty broad, but moving it to pages 32 through 35, there is a lot of stuff here that we have not yet reviewed with the detail we need to through our director of IT. There's a lot in here just around kinds of security things that we would be doing. So one of the things we've been recently starting to implement is 2-factor authentication for each employee. So they're rolling it out. They put me through the ringer first. And, I was able to successfully navigate that to do 2-factor authentication, and then we're moving forward. I know some people already use those in their systems. Sarah Bishop, our director of business, already uses 2-factor authentication in certain kinds of applications that she has to use. So it's one of the many kinds of things we have to do. We're implementing backups, things that we didn't have in place before. So backup systems, backup of data. We have moved some things off-site to cloud storage to folks who have more security ability than we do locally. So we're going to go through and look at some of these just so we can see which ones we can guarantee that we can do, and other ones we may want to on the list for other things we want to do later. But it is fairly significant in there. If you have questions about that, please let me know so we can ask those directly. If you want to follow up later with email or give me a call, there's a lot of detail in that one. So it's only proposed, not required. So we can delay that longer if we need to. And then on pages, go ahead.
Quick, Joe.
Yeah.
I know you're still reviewing, this seems like something we should have. I'm seeing that they call out several roles. Do we have a team that fits this criteria here, where you have a information security officer, a data owner, data custodian? Do we have that structure in place, or do we need to?
We don't really have that structure in place. We have people who fill multiple roles. So we'll, and I can talk more about who's in part of what thing. So we have some people, 2 people who do some data ownership things. Right. So we have Liz and Debbie who do some of those. We do have the information security officer would probably end up being our director, even though we have 2 system administrators who do a lot of the security work. So, and that's why I would actually have them put eyes on this to tell me what the way they would structure it, because I don't want to speak for them, but that would be some kind of an operational thing in terms of who's in charge of which parts. some of these things we do offload, so if we use, depending upon where our firewall is located and how that operates, then some of that would be offloaded to people who provide that service. You want that one? We'll move to the next one. Pages 36 is where the page, go ahead.
Can we go back to cybersecurity?
Yep,
real quick?
yep.
Cybersecurity.
Are you on the policy or on the?
Well, I have just a
Okay.
different question around what cybersecurity looks like today versus what it could look like in 5 years.
Mhm.
How does this align with the district's insurance or liability? And is it, so this is an optional policy. Does it work against us if we were to adopt this policy since we don't have to? And let's say for some reason we don't meet one of these many data points around cybersecurity, do we then potentially not get covered with under our insurance? Would that ever be an issue?
No, actually, that's a great question. Our insurance actually is, so in order for us to get a discount on, so PACE is our primary insurance carrier, right? And they're a large consortium that does it for school districts. And in order for us to get a discount on this, because cybersecurity is not covered unless you do certain things, two-factor authentication is one of them. And so with some of the changeover in that department, we're able to now move forward on implementing two-factor authentication, which is actually a base level requirement for the next thing. So some of these things will actually detail the things that we're supposed to be doing. And that's why I said we'll work with our IT, make sure we're not over promising the kinds of things we're doing, but we are implementing backups, which didn't exist before. We're moving out physical switches and putting in different ones that have different layers of authentication and security. We're looking at how we do both the logical and the physical network maps, because they are going to be different, and that provides us an opportunity to do yet another layer of security. So some of these things in here, and that's why I'll go over with that team, is that this is actually a good thing to say, hey, by the way, we actually are doing, these are the things that we're doing. Okay. But yeah, our insurance is required. Some of this student data privacy is very important. You know, one of the things we talked about was moving our Power School. We had what's called on-prem, which means on the premises servers. All of that has been moved to their third party, to their hosted service at Power School, instead of us hosting it. Again, that data is very rich and always a target. And so I think you've probably seen what has happened at Lewis and Clark recently with that kind of a data breach, and you know, it happens all over. So we're trying to move some of that information to places where people who have the training and, you know, have the ability to secure it or better than we do. We need to do that. So that's why you'll see in here also there's some information on online services, you know, where we host certain information and certain data. We have some requirements to continue to keep data for up to 99 years. So there's a long-term storage structure to that as well. So, you know, it sounds crazy, but it's true. It's part of the archivist rules on certain things in the student record.
We have concerns with our school district connected to cybersecurity.
Have I had concerns?
No, I mean, like, has there been a breach or anything like that? What have the history?
Not that I'm aware of. We've not had one this year.
Mhm.
We do, sometimes people will get messages to their cell phone or to their email that somehow come from me that don't really have my name on it, asking them to buy me gift cards. Please don't buy me gift cards. It can come from me, but and it happens every once in a while. So that there are little fishes. That's fish with a PH. But they do spend time trying to figure out how to get to. So the two-factor authentication helps with some of that, because then they're not breaking into your thing. We've not had any at this time, but that's why we're moving to several services to the cloud and to other kinds of backup, because we don't have those things in place.
And so that would eliminate, for example, what you just shared. I mean, I guess if we do that, what will it look like as far as like security? As in, it'll be more secure.
I mean,
The two-factor authentication, yeah, that's just the first step, and that's really just your email and your Google Docs,
right,
right? That's not everything else that you might log into. So I log into things where I approve POs or, if I have a different level of access to our finance system. That's folks who are in that office as well that have to be very careful because they're constantly getting that information and we're sending it out. So that will help. That's part of it. And then on your physical security or on your wireless security, we have that stuff too. And your student data system has a certain password system as well, and how that's all connected via Active Directory, which is the thing that keeps all of your logins and usernames to all of the systems. So it's just the first basic step, but there's always a balance between security and convenience. Right, there's one more step. Every time I log into that email from somewhere else, I have to go to my phone, bring up an app, look at the number, type in the number. So it's all very important to do. And we have some staff who are able to take this on. And there's been a proposal, and we do need some of these things for our insurance. Okay, anything else? So in pages 36 and 37 and 38, so paid family medical leave insurance. This is the new Oregon. It's called Paid Leave Oregon. So we're going to actually ignore version 1 because what we are providing is actually in version 2, and it's paid family medical leave insurance, and it's called an equivalent plan. Our plan has been approved by the state, so you can either use the state's plan or you can use an equivalent plan. So we're using an equivalent plan through American Fidelity. They're the company that provide our other supplemental insurance options. And so we've done all those things to get it ready to go. So I just wanted to say that we don't need an administrative regulation for this one. We just need to use version 2. All of the things are done through American Fidelity. One of the differentials between American Fidelity and the state program is that if the state program were to run out of money, they would just stop paying premiums. But American Fidelity is not going to run out of money in general, and they'll continue to pay this premium. So we felt that that was a safer option for our employees, and so we're taking care of all that. So we are doing version 2, which means we won't need an AR.
I was just gonna say, be careful with that statement with banks.
That's true. Yes.
Recent bank news.
Right. I don't think they're using Silicon Valley Bank, but okay, so we won't need an AR now, and I just wanted to highlight that for you. We'll put them both in there because that's how they come in the packet, but we'll be using version 2 because we have an equivalent program.
So for collective bargaining purposes, would that be an MOU during this CBA, or would it be added to the CBA at a later time?
We have made provisions in both of them, both in the tentative agreement and in the one that we've settled with our classified earlier in the spring. To be prepared for, to be prepared for the paid leave Oregon provisions, whatever those might be.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we have to make some adjustments to those, that was an agreement during the springtime with classified and most recently with our licensed folks. So we all knew that was because it takes effect in September. So we put some things in them. We knew we'd have to do it anyway. So we have some of that stuff in place already. Okay, you can read the religious and cultural holidays, but the one I wanted to show you, highlight. They are deleting the expulsion one and proposing a new one because there's so many changes to it. We can go over that in more detail next time. I'm sure I'll have lots of questions. That might be the only one to highlight for you. Okay. So this is just first read. I think that was an important one for us to go through in the paid leave Oregon. And then again, the summary sheet. With all, if you have questions about them, we can go through detailed questions next time. We have more time for you.
Up next, we have the 2023 through 2026 strategic plan, first reading.
Okay, that is the penultimate page in your thing. So if you'll look in your packet, it's the one right before the public notice of the executive session. It's very plain looking. Because before we put it into this one, which is the current one, we wanted to highlight some of the changes and talk about the process and answer any questions. And Juan's here as well, so he and I were doing this show from before, so we can answer all your questions. So we had about 25 members of the community, staff, Abel, you were there, parents, students, and so we had folks that came in as a process to look over the current strategic plan, to make some recommendations. They made recommendations for changes. All of those things were compiled and then taken out for 2 full days of focus groups from about 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. or later. We even had one over there at Nuevo Amanecer. I think you came to that one. And so we had 2 full days of focus groups where all that data was gathered, and then by the consultant, and then she brought that back to the committee again to do a final review of what the feedback was, and some adjustments were made to the language for clarifications. There's a lot more that goes on afterwards around creating metrics, about how do you measure these things for success, how do you see if you're improving in them. But there are a few small changes along the way that I'll highlight for you, or you can just ask questions.
Will this be available for the public to view and provide comments if they wanted to?
Well, we did that as part of the process, so that was the.
Now that it's here.
So now is the opportunity for you to make some changes. Are you
Right,
saying we would do it again?
No, I'm asking, so I did attend some of those meetings
Mhm.
and there wasn't very many parents.
Mhm.
So I guess my question is like, is this going to be like available on social media for families to view? And if they wanted to do public comment or something, would they have the opportunity to do that? Or did we already, when you say the process, does that mean that was the opportunity to?
Yeah, I mean, we did this over several months and brought the folks in to do that. So this is kind of the part where the board can make changes or review. I don't know if you want to go out and usurp all the other stuff that had been done through the committee process. So the stuff that was gathered was brought back to a group that we charged to try to put something together to present to you. So this is their presentation to you about what after they heard the feedback, after they did the work, then they brought it forward like this. So if you add another part of it, then, that may be kind of changing up what folks have put into it to present to you as the board.
Well, one, under the mission statement, I found it hard to promise something that we can't guarantee. At our second reading, is that when we hold on?
Yeah, so if you have other language suggestions and things like that, this is the board's strategic plan. Right, so this committee was charged with developing one to bring to you, and then if there are other changes that you'd like to discuss.
I have a question related to the previous strategic plan. You
Mhm.
mentioned that there's a process for metrics and, tracking how well we do with the goals. Has that been completed for the previous one where we know how well we did?
In broad set terms, there are, but not delineated by each of the goals on there, on each of the objectives. We could pull data around like how well our students are performing on their state assessments and the graduation rate, and so that, our achievement of dual language with the seal of biliteracy. So those metrics are exist. They're not compiled in a connected way back right now to the strategic plan.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we can do that so we can close that loop and see where we need to improve on and where we're doing great, and maybe we can maybe not drop that goal, but not prioritize it versus areas to improve on.
Mhm.
And then somehow we report back to the community and we say, hey, these are the goals we set for you 5 years ago. Here's what we actually did. So there's, a full loop there. Because I look at these next goals and I'm like, we have issues, financial, challenges up ahead. Is it gonna be feasible to accomplish these goals?
And then adding to that, how are we gonna measure these goals and objectives?
Mhm.
Kind of adding to what Gustavo said, that came up at the meeting that I attended, and, we're creating these goals, but yet we don't know what those results are for our previous goals. And so how do we know what worked and what didn't work? Because some of this is similar to that. And so how do, and so the question is if they're similar, does that mean we need to improve on that? Does that mean that the results are positive? And if so, why is it still on here? So I just find it hard to review this when we don't know, as Gustavo said, what those results were from the last 5 years.
So something to keep in mind and work on. If we can compile something and just put a report together to wrap this one up, that'd be great.
Mhm.
The other one that I had a question on, because I know it sounds great, but I don't know, like, in all practicality, what it looks like now and what we want it to look like is under foster cultural engagement and partnerships, item 2, family and community members will be empowered to participate in school and district activities and have an active voice in decision making. I think participation, the first piece is good. I'm just not sure how the active voice in decision making looks like right now and if we can improve on that.
Well, and it's in here as something that people found that they wanted to do more of. And so if it's important to you as a school board, that's why it would be in your strategic plan.
Yeah, no, it is. I agree. I think it should be here. My question is, where are we at with that?
I think we're not where we want to be, and that's why it is highlighted here. It's not in your old plan, right? And I think that was one of the things about the changes here went from some passive voice. We said, like on the in the orange, I'm on the second to last bullet. All family and community members will have opportunities to engage, instead of have an active voice or be empowered to participate. So that's the change. The change from a more passive stance, which was have opportunities, practice this, support that, and people wanted to have more active kind of voice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is good. Just again, going back to like, and I'm sure y'all are gonna work on this, but practically, how is that gonna look to like You know, because communication has been a challenge.
Mhm.
And it probably will continue to be, but if we want to make this happen, then we'll have to readjust the way we do things. So, and then it can be a challenge too, to get, you know, abundance of feedback too. So finding that balance
Mhm.
for people. But beyond those few comments, I think it was great. I also participated in a session. It was good to offer feedback and be heard, and it was good to have all several nights in different locations. So that process was fairly clear. Any other comments?
For me, the empowerment word, it's always tied deep inside. And so for me, it will be something more like animando a la gente or so having something like awareness or encouraging instead of, to me, it's always been like a hierarchical way of telling people or kids in the minority community that we have the power to empower you.
Okay.
And so it's just thinking about an equity lens with an equity lens and inclusion lens.
So it sounds like to you, it means to give. I'm saying to give power, is that what you said?
For us, it's more like encouragement or animando, you know, our communities.
Right, but the word empowered for you, if I'm hearing you
Mhm.
right,
Uh-huh.
is to give, like to give the power to.
The empowered is like you have the power and you're empowering the poor community, right? So that's what you're doing. You're handing supposedly the power.
Is that what it really means, or is that from your?
That, you know, thinking about the equity lens, it sounds pretty inequitable. That's what I'm saying.
Which part?
Number two, you're looking at number two?
No, it's empowered everywhere. It's in vision, it's in foster culture and engagement. It's right underneath in number 2, goal and foster. I mean, I can go on and looking for the empowerment word.
But I think you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's
Diminishing
the-
the person that you're, you know, that you're talking to, diminishing the power of the student.
devaluing their power, you're saying they don't have power, so to know the word about it.
Excellent.
What's the definition of empowered?
It's actually the authority or power given to someone to do something.
I think that's the issue, it's given versus
Right.
an inherent.
How'd you know I was looking it up? I mean, that's right. I'm like, in case, yeah.
It seems like we have a magic wand and we want to empower.
Sure.
people, right?
What would be an alternative?
That's what I was saying, like, it could be, encouragement, or it could be something different, but that really hit my soul, right? Like,
Mhm.
you have an accent, so we can empower you to get rid of your accent because, you know, you're not valuable because you have this, or because of this, we can empower you to do such, right? I have the authority. I can give you the authority. That's what it means to me, right? But I could be wrong. But when you're looking at it with an equity lens and inclusion,
So from that lens, So you're not giving, so then what are you doing? No.
You're encouraging, right? You bringing hope to the center, you're bringing whatever is out there so you can encourage the students, the community to come and be part of this, right?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Encourage, another word we could use could be welcome to participate. So there's that one, and then do you see another? I see the, empowered. I guess from where this came, like, what was the thought process for doing empowered versus encouraged or?
Yeah, I think that they're, and I appreciate you saying it that way, and you might have mentioned that during the meeting too, but now it's all coming back to me. I think that their idea was to get away from something that's more passive, which is, and I think we could find, we could look for a word on this. I think that when they said, I think I said it before, where it said they will have opportunities. Sometimes when you just say, well, I'm offering something, but nobody came. Well, that's not really, going out. And so I think they wanted something that was more active, like that they would have that, that they would, and maybe encouraged, animated, trying to think of a better word though than that, because I think that part of it is that to create an active system of bringing people in is different than.
For us going there, right?
Mhm.
Instead of always expecting people to come here.
Yeah. But they mean a little bit different things in each one of these, and so I think that's something that if we want to try to come up with a different way to say it, that's okay too.
That's why we have a first reading.
That's right, yeah, first reading. And I can put together a couple words, but I think you should, if you have better words, now's your chance to do it. You're laughing at me.
All right, I have a question. Yeah, so to give, then I mean they have a choice. Because I feel like when you say encourage, like they have a choice.
And people always have to have choices, right? They don't have to follow us just because we're telling them to follow us. So encouragement or animando is telling people why it's so important, right? Having a conversation, why it's so important for you to come and participate at the school district or come and participate at the school board. I don't know. Animando, I don't know if a word in English, animando, it's not animate, but it's like encouraging.
Yeah.
People have it in there, the students have it in there, right? They have that special. It's about us, it's us that we can cultivate that audience, that passion, right? To turn on the light or to turn the flame, the passion to do good or to do worse. That's what I'm saying. It's not about empowering.
Okay.
Now that we're being going through it,
Yeah.
so strength in number one, anticipated future growth, anticipate, like, it's. You always anticipate the future, so, like, choose the same words, you just be anticipated growth. You don't anticipate the past.
Noted. I think in the next, when we bring this back, like a couple of the things we've heard about, I'll just do a strike through and make a few changes. The other things.
Yeah, and so like going back to metrics, I really like 2 under strength. As we've talked about future budget alignments, this is the only one so far that I really struck me that it deals with expenditures. And I think it goes to our budgeting process, what it is now and what it can be. And that's a great pathway to build it out, get more community feedback, that kind of stuff.
Any other comments?
We've been talking about, numbers and outcomes forever. So I think it's good, yeah, good, like we're planning to, for outcomes, to be measured, to measure the outcomes, because we're being talking about how do we follow the students after they graduate from high school, right? How do we know that they're succeeding in life and so on, so, but before that, we also have some things to measure before the next step, so. I think we're in the right path.
That's it for board action items.
Sorry, this is.
That's the current one. Yeah.
All right, any future agenda items? I know there's a list from previous meetings.
I don't want to add to the list.
I do have one item. With the school year ending and as summer is here and as I start the school year next year, just streamlining the parent volunteer process. I know that it's taken some families months to be approved, and just wondering what the follow-up is on that, as well as I know the background check is taking longer, and if there's any way to speed up that process. So, as it's the end of the school year and summer's here, I mean, in hopes that for those families who want to volunteer,
Mhm.
that they'd be ready for that for the next school year. Is there a plan to, I don't know, maybe host some sort of workshop for families who would like to do that and be ready for next year, as opposed to not having a plan and then trying to figure out how to help families like in November?
So you mean like doing a spring sign up or a spring kind of a collection of folks?
Right, or just, doing something throughout spring or summer to have,
Mhm.
have volunteers ready.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to do that during school.
Yeah, and the background check system that we use has its own timeline. There's a whole thing through the ODE as well that we have to go through, and so we could certainly do a spring kind of roundup, people who'll be interested in doing it for next year. And they'd be closer to being ready to go.
Do we know why it's taking months for the background check?
Well, now that everybody has to do it in a similar way, I think they're a little bit overwhelmed.
I'll echo that. I did talk to a community member who said they submitted a background check application. It had been a couple months.
Mhm.
But I like the idea of doing like a workshop
Mhm.
twice a year. Hey, if you have questions around volunteering, come to an event, get your packet, walk you through
Mhm.
what it's like.
So there's a video included now, if I remember right, I did that. And at the time it was only offered in English, but I know some schools have, done something to help their families.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that video is only in English now.
Is that the child abuse one?
Yes, I'm not sure. But it's part of the applying
Right,
process.
so that'd be the child abuse one, and I don't know if it's in Spanish yet or not.
I think my suggestion for that, especially for some families, because one of the areas where I got lost personally was I got called saying that I needed to do something online because I filled it out during maybe back to school night.
Mm.
And they told me how to find it online, but that's kind of where, I forgot, I didn't get anything or a link that would have been easier.
Okay.
And then for some parents that again, it might get confusing, maybe posting a sort of watch night where they can register maybe everybody that attends. And so you just have a watch night. And if you do, I can't remember if there was a Spanish version or not. But that way you can have already people in families checked out. And you have to, check that thing off of the list that was for
Mhm.
having to do.
There's just families who want to participate, but then they realize they can't. They can't because then now they have to wait.
Mhm. Okay.
We don't have like a closing of house, right? We have an open house at schools.
We don't have a closing, so.
That would be a place where you could do something like this.
How long is a background check good for?
3 years. Or at least the parent volunteers 3 years if I wait.
Because we have staff that can do the background checks during the summer.
Mhm.
So then does staff use the same company?
You mean when we hire folks? Yeah, they have to actually go through a fingerprinting process and a bunch of other things.
Is it a lot of trouble to do like a clinic? To bring the actual people that does the fingerprinting and all that stuff?
Well, the volunteers don't have to do fingerprinting, so they just have to do a background
The
check.
background
Yeah,
check?
so those are sent off to them. They go through a system that they go through. So it's not that it just goes off into the ether and we have to wait for them to come back with it. So our system on this side, the video is about child abuse and reporting child abuse and things of that nature. And that's also a requirement by the state to do that.
That's similar to the one that we do that over there? No.
Yeah.
Because they also have resources in Spanish. That's why.
So we can bring people together to learn about it, but then they have to go through the process.
Yeah, usually when we do like clinics or stuff like that, we don't just give pamphlets, we bring the actual resources.
Mhm.
So people can see if it's there and if it's not,
Right.
and do the actual paperwork and stuff, but yeah, that's a different.
Yeah, I think the paperwork part of it is actually not as difficult. It's just the being not in control of how the background checks go. Yeah.
The process.
Yeah.
Any other ones? Have to do it. And we'll move on to board calendar. Have a work session coming up on May 9th. May 23rd will be a regular meeting, and then the budget work session. The first meeting will happen on May 30th. And now we'll head into an executive session. Orders 192.660 B, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations.